When my grandfather passed, my uncle said, "He left me the land, you're not even mentioned." My mom just whispered, "Let him talk." Then the lawyer opened the envelope that changed everything. My grandfather passed away last month. He was 89, lived his whole life in rural Tennessee, and was the kind of man who believed in hard work and family. He owned a 50-acre farm that had been in our family for generations. I grew up spending summers there, helping him with chores, listening to his stories, and learning about life. He was more of a father to me than my own dad ever was. When he died, the family gathered for the funeral and the reading of the will. My uncle, his only son, was there, acting like he owned the place already. Before the lawyer even started reading, my uncle leaned over to me and said, "He left me the land, you're not even mentioned." My mom just whispered, "Let him talk." The lawyer began reading the will, and as expected, my uncle was named the primary beneficiary. But then, the lawyer opened a sealed envelope labeled Addendum. In it, my grandfather stated that he was leaving the farmhouse and the surrounding 50 acres to me. My uncle's face turned red, and he started shouting that it was a mistake. The lawyer calmly explained that the addendum was legally binding and had been signed and notarized 2 weeks before my grandfather's passing. After that, things got tense. My uncle started causing problems, cutting fences, stealing livestock, and filing false complaints against me. One night, I caught him trying to set fire to the barn. I called the police, but he was released the next day due to lack of evidence. While cleaning out the attic, I found a hidden safe containing letters, photographs, and a journal. One letter was addressed to me, explaining that my grandfather had evidence of my uncle's embezzlement from the family business. I took the documents to a lawyer and filed a lawsuit against my uncle. The evidence was overwhelming, and he was ordered to pay restitution. With the legal battles behind me, I focused on restoring the farmhouse. I turned it into a community center, offering workshops and events for locals. My grandfather's legacy lived on, not just through the land, but through the lives it touched. My uncle moved away, and we haven't spoken since. My mom visits often, and we sit on the porch, reminiscing about my grandfather. The land he loved so much is now a beacon of hope and unity. A few weeks after the court ruled in my favor, things were quiet. Too quiet. I thought my uncle had finally accepted the outcome and moved on. He didn't. One morning, I went outside and found deep tire marks in the field. Someone had driven through the pasture, flattening the crops I'd just planted. I checked the security camera at the gate, but it had been ripped off the post and smashed. I felt sick. This wasn't just about the land anymore. He was trying to ruin everything slowly without getting caught. I called the sheriff, but like before, there wasn't enough evidence to tie it directly to him. I installed new cameras, motion lights, even got a dog. I wasn't taking chances. Then it got worse. One night around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with an alert from one of the motion cameras near the tool shed. I opened the app and saw a shadow moving near the barn. I grabbed my flashlight and my shotgun, just in case. When I got out there, I didn't see anyone, but the door to the shed was wide open. Inside, my tools were gone. Every last one. Next morning, I filed another police report. Still nothing. No prints. No suspects. No help. That same afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was calm, slow. "You don't belong there. That place isn't yours." Then the line went dead. I tried calling back. No answer. I reported it, but again, no way to trace it. I knew it was my uncle. No one else had that kind of hatred in their voice. But I had no proof. About a week later, I was in town buying supplies when someone followed me back to the farmhouse. I didn't notice at first. It was a dusty old sedan, beat up, easy to miss. But it parked across the road and sat there for an hour. I walked toward it, and it drove off. Later that night, I checked the mailbox and found a dead raccoon stuffed inside. It reeked. It was clear intimidation. I started keeping a journal of everything: dates, times, photos, anything I could document. My lawyer told me it might help if things escalated again. And then they did. One morning, I noticed the water from the well pump was cloudy, brown, foul-smelling. I shut it off and called a plumber. He found motor oil dumped into the well. It would take weeks and thousands of dollars to clean. I had to stay with my mom in the meantime. That was when she told me something that made my blood run cold. "Michael," she said, "there's something I didn't tell you. When your grandfather updated the will, he also had a private conversation with me. He said he feared Richard might come after you, that he had secrets he didn't want anyone to know. Deep ones. He said if anything happened, you were to go into the crawl space under the house and look for the tin box." I drove back to the farm the next morning. Carefully, quietly. I didn't want to be seen. I crawled under the house, flashlight in hand. It was damp, dusty. After about 30 minutes, I found it. A rusted tin box wrapped in old rags. Inside was a set of photos, old USB drives, and a small notebook. The notebook had names, dates, and what looked like payoff amounts. At the back, there were notes that looked like someone tracking police routines, road stops, even mentions of officers' names and favors done. My hands were shaking. I brought it all straight to my lawyer. She went pale looking through the evidence. "This could open a lot of doors," she said. "But it also might put a target on your back." She wasn't wrong. 2 nights later, my mom's car was broken into. Nothing was taken, but the glove compartment had been rifled through, and the only thing missing was the extra key to my house. We changed all the locks the next day. Now I'm not just fighting over land. I'm tangled in something bigger, something darker. I'm scared. Not for the farm, but for what happens if I dig too deep. Because whatever my uncle was involved in, it wasn't just petty theft or revenge. It was something bigger. Maybe criminal. Maybe worse. I haven't told the cops everything yet. I'm not sure who to trust. Some of the names in that notebook? They're still in uniform. I'm trying to decide what to do next. I'm being watched. I know it. I just don't know how far my uncle's willing to go or who else he has in his pocket. There's no ending to this yet. And I'm starting to think the fight for the farm was just the beginning. I started sleeping with a loaded shotgun by the bed. 3 days after finding the notebook, someone cut the power line running to the farmhouse. Not a storm. Not a downed branch. Clean cut, probably with bolt cutters. I drove into town to get a generator and some battery lights. When I got back, someone had been inside. Nothing stolen. Just things moved. My boots by the door were flipped. A chair pulled an inch away from the table. The coffee mug I left in the sink was gone. It wasn't a robbery. It was a message. I called the sheriff again. He gave me the same empty speech about how without security footage, there wasn't much they could do. I mentioned the notebook, carefully, without giving too much. His expression changed. Not shock. Not concern. Just a twitch of the jaw. He told me to be careful. Then left. That night, I looked up some of the names in the notebook. One belonged to a man who had gone missing 2 years ago. The local paper said he was a known whistleblower who'd filed a report on corruption in the zoning office. Disappeared without a trace. No body. No follow-up. Just gone. Another name was a banker. Found dead in his car last summer. Overdose. But the toxicology report listed no known drugs. The case was closed without findings. The third name? A woman who used to run the county records office. Fired for mishandling sensitive documents. Her address was still listed in public records. I drove out there during the day, hoping for answers. Her house was a trailer parked on a wooded lot, covered in tarps and junk. She wouldn't open the door at first. I had to beg her through the screen. When she finally cracked it open, her face went pale the moment I mentioned my grandfather's name. Then she muttered, "You need to get off that land. You don't know what it's built on." I asked her what she meant. She told me my grandfather had helped hide something years ago. A deal gone bad. She wouldn't go into details, but she said the land had more than cattle and fences. It was used briefly as a dump site, not just for trash. Chemicals. Maybe worse. The EPA looked into it once, but someone got paid off. She said she'd lost everything trying to do the right thing. Before I could ask more, she shut the door and wouldn't come back out. I drove home in silence. That night, I dug behind the barn with a rented metal detector. I didn't know what I was looking for, but after an hour, I hit something. It was a rusted barrel. I pulled it out, and it smelled awful, chemical, sharp, like rotting bleach and gasoline. I didn't open it. I called the EPA hotline and reported it anonymously. 2 days later, 2 black SUVs rolled up the drive. No sirens. No uniforms. Just suits. They said they were with the Environmental Protection Agency. I showed them where I found the barrel. They took it and left without answering a single question. That night, my internet went out. Then my phone. Then, a drone started circling above the property. Silent. Small. It hovered near the barn for over 20 minutes before zipping off toward the woods. I couldn't sleep after that. I tried reaching my lawyer again. Straight to voicemail. I went to her office, and her assistant said she was out of town indefinitely. The assistant looked nervous just saying it. I think I've stepped into something massive. I started checking the crawl space again, wondering if there was more hidden. I found a small black case taped under the floorboards. Inside was a burner phone and a note that read, "Only call if you're sure." I haven't called yet. The more I learn, the more I realize this isn't about my uncle. He's just one piece of it. My grandfather left me more than land. He left me a puzzle. A secret that people have killed to protect. I don't know who to trust. I don't know how deep this goes. But I'm starting to think I was never supposed to inherit anything. I waited 3 days before I used the burner phone. I locked all the doors, covered the windows, and sat at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking when I dialed the number on the note. It rang twice. A voice answered. Calm. Low. Did you find the barrels? I said yes. The voice didn't ask who I was. It already knew. If you want this to stop, you need to go to the courthouse. Basement level. Records room. There's a file cabinet in the far right corner. Drawer labeled 1977. Pull everything under K. Then the call ended. I left before sunrise. I parked 3 blocks away from the courthouse and walked. The records office was closed, but the side door wasn't locked. Someone had made sure I could get in. I slipped inside, crept down to the basement. Dust everywhere. Old papers, the smell of mold and rust. I found the cabinet. Inside was a folder marked Keller Land Use. My family name. Inside the folder were blueprints, memos, receipts, and photos. They showed that in 1977, my grandfather allowed toxic waste to be dumped on the lower edge of the farm. He got paid a lot enough to buy the land outright. He signed off on documents saying it was agricultural runoff. But the photos showed drums just like the one I found, corroded, leaking, buried shallow. One report even said some of it was medical. Unlabeled biohazard material. I felt sick reading it. There were also signed statements from people who'd tried to stop it. All silenced. 1 fired. 2 missing. My grandfather was listed as a cooperative agent. I had to leave. I took photos of everything. Made copies. I didn't take the original folder. I knew someone was still watching. When I got home, the barn was gone. Burned to the ground. The fire crew said it was arson. There was a gas trail leading to the fuel tank. My mother called crying. Someone had slashed her tires. She found a photo of me taped to her front door with an X over my face. That was when I decided to end it. No more hiding. No more waiting for the next attack. I emailed everything I had, copies of the documents, photos, timelines, to every major news outlet, the EPA, the FBI, and a lawyer in Memphis who specialized in government corruption. Then I drove to my uncle's house. I didn't plan to talk. He answered the door with the same smug look he wore at the funeral. But it dropped when he saw my face. "I know everything," I said. He stepped back, tried to shut the door. I pushed it open. He stumbled. "You were part of it," I said. "You knew what Grandpa did. You helped him hide it." He didn't deny it, just stared. "That land's poison," I said. "And you fought me for it. You wanted it not for the memories, but because you were afraid of what I'd find." Still, he said nothing. I left. 3 days later, the story broke on national news. Decades-old dump site found on family farm. My grandfather's name. My name. The town's name. Everything. The EPA returned, this time with full suits and excavation teams. They quarantined the lower fields. I had to evacuate. Then the fallout hit. My uncle was arrested for obstruction and conspiracy to conceal hazardous waste. Turns out, he had a second bank account tied to quiet payouts. He had been collecting hush money from a private contractor for years. They paid him to keep quiet and keep the land undisturbed. My name was in the press. Some praised me. Others called me a traitor for shaming the family legacy. I didn't care. But the truth was, I wasn't innocent either. I knew my grandfather had secrets. I ignored the signs. I wanted to believe he was just a kind old man who gave me a gift. But I inherited something dirty. I profited off a lie even if I didn't make it myself. And that truth burns deeper than anything else. The farm is gone now. Seized, under investigation. My name will always be attached to it. I lost the home I loved, the place I called safe. My mom had to move. We don't talk much anymore. Not since I told her everything. She still loved him, even after all of it. Sometimes I think maybe I should have stayed quiet. But silence wouldn't have stopped them. They made mistakes. So did I. But I made sure it all came to light. And for once, the land is quiet again. But not clean. Never clean.